It's like every kid dreams of a German car. I can't go a mile without getting cut off by an M3 with an AMG glued to its bumper. When I was growing up, my older brother's dream car was a Lexus. That was the pinnacle for him. And he'd lose his mind anytime he could drive my mom's Hyundai. He was a JDM guy, and he didn't even know it. That was the norm for kids that were into cars back in the day. And my sister's boyfriend, he had an Acura Integra, and he and my brother would rip through gears like little old me wasn't in the back seat, no seatbelt, holding on for dear life. Civics, Supras, 240SXs, JDM was everywhere. That's just what car guys wanted. By the time I hit high school though, it was muscle cars. My school parking lot was full of Mustangs and Camaros. The SRT8 Challenger, that was the poster on my wall. I'd have sold both my kidneys for one. So Mike, let me ask you, when did this happen? How did M badges and AMG logos capture an entire generation's imagination?
You guys liked muscle cars and BMWs?
Come on. Come on.
Some of us have been JDM purists since the beginning.
Oh my God.
I'll admit, I didn't buy a BMW.
You bought a BMW? You did exactly. You used to have. Okay, what did you have and why did you have it?
I had a 91 300ZX, a
Why?
Nissan.
How'd you get into that?
Because it was sick, and that I always loved like old retro Japanese cars, and I would still have it today.
Why do you think you love them?
Because they were really, really accessible ways to get into the car scene and have a lot of fun and not spend too much money on maintenance or modifications.
The part Michael's leaving out is that he has two older brothers.
I also have two older
He
brothers.
has two older brothers. Like, I'm telling you, that's where it comes from. But, okay, so why'd you get out of it?
Well, I blew the engine.
Okay, we're going to get to that. Yes, exactly. That's my point. And then he bought a BMW.
Yeah.
But let's roll it back for a second, right? Let's start in the early 2000s when JDM was king. So you've got affordable tuners, a huge aftermarket, and a cultural explosion thanks to like the Fast and Furious movie, right? So the Fast and Furious movie brought in $207 million at the box office. That was a massive movie. Like, we all fell in love with that movie, and Civic Si sales increased by 22% after that movie came out. Isn't that like absolutely nuts?
That's hilarious, dude. Honda didn't pay a dime for that marketing either.
Nothing. And then you've got Need for Speed Underground. I know you played that.
Yep.
I played that. 15 million copies sold, and those were discs. There were no downloads back then.
No.
15 million copies. That's how we came up when we were like really young and our siblings were giving us our first PS2s or Xboxes. Like, these are the cars that we were playing with. It was an era that was defined by accessibility, right? A Toyota MR2 Spider was $23,000 back then, which is $38,000 today adjusted for inflation.
Wow. And that was a sick car in the early 2000s.
Dude, you're talking mid-engine, you're talking rear-wheel drive. Ring a bell?
Dude, it's
Same formula today. You know the formula, everybody. But no, but seriously, like, that is an insane amount of value back then. Those value props literally do not exist today. So you've got cars like the Mazda Speed 3, which used to be cool. Like, I don't know what happened, but it used to be cool. You've got the Civic Si, which also used to be cool. And if you worked on it and messed up, you didn't go bankrupt, right?
All of those cars had economy engines. The Civic Si had the same economy engine that came in the regular one. The MR2 had a Corolla engine in it. That was the allure of it. Like, you could have fun while paying essentially close to the same that you were paying for just a regular economy car. And sure, you were giving up some practicality, but at the end of the day, you got something that was really, really fun to drive.
It's the value prop of a lifetime, and it just doesn't exist today. But we'll get to why that's the case. Something really interesting that I want to share with you is a 2002 Mazda Miata on the used market was $3,500 to $5,000, which was 18 to 25% of a 20-year-old's annual income. Check this out. Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z. The average age of a first car for Gen X was 9.2 years.
Wow.
The average price of that car adjusted for inflation today was $8,300. The percent of their income spent, 22. Fast forward to Millennials, 6.8 years, $14,000 today, and 31%. Now you've got Gen Z, 4.1 years, essentially new cars, 21.5 grand, and 37% of their income. Like, people are spending more and more of their money on newer cars.
Dude, that's absurd. And you know what's hilarious about that? That Gen X figure buying a 9.2-year-old car for $8,300. I bought my BMW in 2014 when it was 9 years old for $8,200.
The data doesn't lie. I could also tell you that would have been roughly 22% of your income.
Well, at the end of the day, it was student loan money, but Don't tell the government that.
But it's crazy. Like, people are buying newer cars and they're spending more money to get them.
Insane. When I was getting out of high school, a car that was 4 years old was unattainable, bro. Nobody had those. Only like the super rich kids.
You see kids driving these things today and you're thinking, like, how do you afford that? Like, has everyone just gotten wealthier?
Yeah.
And like, that's what's happening. People are spending more money. And I'm going to get to how that happened. But really quickly, I wanted to comment on the fact that 82% of JDM enthusiasts were in local car clubs. Today, that's 37%. Like, car clubs are dying. Community is dying. Forums are dying. And 68% of JDM owners did DIY repairs. Like, we used to wrench on our cars in front of our own houses and break things and not be able to get to school and have our car on jack stands for 7 days. Like, kids aren't doing that anymore.
No.
They're just not doing that anymore.
Well, it's because you need a doctorate to work on the cars that come out these days,
Yes.
dude. Like, an average like Genesis coupe requires an aerospace engineering degree to figure out how to install a different turbo.
That's coming from Mike. Mike was the person we'd call when we broke it and didn't know how to fix it.
I know, there was a time when I drilled every single valve cover bolt out of Kyle's G35's engine because trying to replace the valve cover gasket, we broke every single bolt off in that engine. We almost spent the amount of money that you would spend at a mechanic to get that job done on left-handed bits to get those broken bolts out of that engine block.
That was an absolute nightmare. And it built character.
It really did.
And I think that's something that we're missing today. Let's not harp on the JDM too much. You get it. You had to be there. But fast forward now to the late 2000s, mid 2010s. We're starting to get to high school. Things are changing. We're now the age that our older siblings used to be. Now you've got Camaro SS, Dodge Challenger SRT8, Mustang GT, like V8s everywhere, right? V8 mania. Here's some figures for you. Ford sold 1.2 million Mustangs between 2000 and 2010.
And Mustang sales have declined ever since, right?
Tremendously.
Right around that era was the peak of Mustang sales, and it's done nothing but fall since.
Tremendously. This is where we started to see newer cars.
Yeah.
Our friend bought a brand new Mustang GT. I had another friend that, remember, he had the Camaro SS?
Yeah.
You see kids buying brand new cars in high school, and you're kind of like, how is this happening? And this is like the first time that this is really happening in mass. And there are two leading factors, right? There are lots of different things, but subprime lending, right? Subprime lending was huge at that point. And you really have like the big introduction of like 72-month loans.
Yeah.
And so people are just getting like a brand new Mustang GT for like $449 a month.
A car that they had no business affording that probably got repossessed later.
And here's a figure that backs this up. 73% of Challenger, Mustang, and Camaro sales to 2006 to 2015 were new cars, whereas only 12% of the JDMs we mentioned in that same period were new.
Well, dude, that's a thing. Like, if you're talking about trending and people on average buying newer cars on average are significantly less reliable. You can't justify buying a car that was built in 2012. It's gonna have every single light on the dashboard lit up. That thing is going to be undrivable.
Literally.
It's literally less reliable than a car that is a decade older than it.
It's true. Obviously, you're seeing a theme here, right? The culture is driving what the kids are buying, and the kids are kind of creating what's in vogue. I think it's always been that way. So you got Fast and Furious, you got Need for Speed, you got this JDM mania. Then you've got, remember, Transformers came out in 2007. It did $709 million at the box office. There was a 427% spike in Chevy Camaro web traffic after that movie came out.
Well,
like, everyone wanted Bumblebee. Everybody wanted Bumblebee.
They had Megan Fox in little tiny shorts, bro. That's what it was. It was the scene where she had the hood up. The Megan Fox, the shorts, you know the one.
But I mean, it's crazy. You see everyone just shifting with pop culture.
The scene was like wildly different, going from that early 2000s like foreign Japanese kind of feel into the mid 2010s like American kind of feel. But what I really don't get is, like, how did we get to German?
Yeah, that was a really interesting shift. So after the American muscle mania, German brands started going up. In Germany, by 2010, luxury vehicle sales had increased by 27.3%. Now, this is the foreshadowing in the background that's setting the stage for what's about to happen next. But you're absolutely right. It's like, okay, we got JDM, I get it. After that, we got American Muscle. They were pretty good, they're pretty affordable, they were new. What happened after that? How did we get to German? Fast forward to 2020, the numbers get crazy. BMW M sold 177,000 vehicles worldwide in 2023, up 14.6% from 2020.
And that's all M vehicles, M4s, M3s, M2s.
Yep.
Okay.
All M vehicles. I remember reading somewhere, I got to get the exact statistic for you, but it was something like in that 1 year, 22, 23, one of those, BMW M sold more vehicles than Challengers, Camaros, Mustangs combined.
I believe that because American muscle sales have been in the dumps for a little bit, and that's why those cars are going away. The Challenger's an EV and the Camaro's in a graveyard.
So another really interesting figure to just kick off how this is happening, then we're going to talk about why. 32% of Mercedes-AMG C63 buyers, so we're talking $100, $120, $130,000 spec cars, sick, top trim level, almost flagship Mercedes.
Yeah.
32% of those buyers were under the age of 35.
They have no business spending that much money
It's
on
insane.
a car.
It's insane.
If you're a trust fund baby, I get it, but that is such a small percentage that should not account for a significant percentage of vehicle sales.
That's not what's happening.
People are spending too much on cars.
And the numbers show us that. People are spending 40% of their income on their car payment. That's where these cars are coming from. Here's another interesting figure for you. Last year, there was 4.3 billion views on TikTok on videos with the hashtag JDM. For AMG alone, there was 8.9 billion.
AMG is that much more popular than JDM?
All of JDM. We are living in a new era. I'm going to tell you why I think that's happening, but like just for a second, as an old JDM fan, like what are you feeling?
Honestly, it's inevitable. It's hard to hear the statistics actually back up what we've all been seeing. But when the financial crisis in 2008 happened, the car market changed forever. There was consolidations that forced companies to give up on investing in things that didn't bring in the most profits for their business. And for Japanese car manufacturers, that meant doubling down on economy cars and commercial vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
In the American car market, it meant...
I don't quite understand what the hell you just told me. How much money do you need to survive, General Motors, from today until March 30th?
The amount of money would be significant. I mean, we have supplier
What is
payables
significant,
of $4
Mr.
or
White?
$5 billion every month.
Ford having to make a lot of cuts, the death of Pontiac, just a lot of great cars going away. 2008 was a major turning point. The Japanese car market specifically never recovered. We lost most Nissan sports cars except for the 370, which came back as pretty much a 350, which came back as the 400, which is also pretty much a 350.
Yeah.
We didn't lose the GTR. We got the GTR, but then it proceeded to stay the same forever.
Yeah. Sad.
And the reality of that stagnation in development, in putting company investment into creating vehicles that people can have passion for, is the statistics that we're seeing today. The passion for JDM vehicles has died. And it took a while to do that, because the beauty of JDM vehicles is they're worth more in somebody's hands. When you make them your own, you add something more valuable to them. You make them more than the sum of their parts. But that can only last so long. And all the cars that you would have wanted to do that with have now become so old that they are mostly undrivable and being relegated to being show cars, investment pieces, and garage queens.
Yeah, no one's daily driving a Mark IV anymore. You're like out of your mind.
You can't. Anything of value it's a part of car culture history and is no longer financially feasible to be driven on the road.
But again, to circle back, like it makes sense that like what you said it's so true. It's like when you make it your own, you like also find community with the other people that are making it their own. And like that's dying, because if I'm spending 40% of my income on a 4.1 year old car, I can't afford to mess it up.
No.
I can't afford to get in there and change things that are gonna blow my motor. I'm gonna wreak financial ruin on my entire legacy.
The thing's so complicated that you need to rely on your dealership warranty. And if you're relying on your dealership warranty, you can't modify your car.
I'm happy that you said warranties, because now I'm gonna get to how this happened. I mean, most people know this, but if you really pay attention to the auto market, what you've seen is that the German auto manufacturers have become extremely aggressive with their lease deals. This has been going on for a long time. So you've got cars flooding the market with extremely attractive lease deals. Those lease deals come back 2 to 3 years later, and guess who they're prime cars for?
Us.
Our young generation. Exactly. So you've got lease deals happening. Let me give you an interesting statistic to back that up. 83% of M2 buyers lease at around $700 a month. That's similar monthly payment to a financed Camaro or Mustang.
Wow.
And we'd all rather have an M2.
Yeah.
Those lease deals make it so much more attainable, to have an M series car than financing like a traditional, muscle car.
The M2 is one of the few cars out the gate that gives you, as a former JDM enthusiast who loves driver's cars, loves manual engines, loves tunability, loves turbo engines, a straight six with a turbo and a lightweight car with a manual transmission. Bro,
What more can you ask for?
that's the only thing, and they just serve it up to you on a hot platter. Of course they're selling well.
Yep. Also, Mike, we've talked about this so many times through the life of this channel, and just to ourselves as we look at buying our next cars, CPO came out of nowhere.
CPL?
Certified pre-owned.
Oh,
That wasn't a thing when we were younger. And certified pre-owned is everywhere now. So you got these lease cars coming back. You got an M3 and M2 that's now affordable. Plus, it's being certified by the manufacturer, and it's got a 6-year warranty on it. Like, these are the factors that are coming together to create the perfect storm where kids are now buying German cars.
Is that why dealerships are so gung-ho about buying back leases and for taking trade-in value? Is it because
They can certify them.
They can certify them, and right there, just by adding that certification and lending that warranty on their service department that they're already paying for, they can increase the price of that car like almost 2x?
Precisely.
Wow.
Nowadays, 58% of M and AMG purchases are under 4 years old in the CPO market.
That makes a ton of sense. I mean, our friends that we know that drive M cars have those cars. They're not 2025s, they're like 2022s.
Yeah, they're all a couple years old.
Yeah.
They're all a couple years old because you can save a ton of money when it comes back on a lease and you can get it certified pre-owned. And you're looking at an M3 with iDrive, all the advanced technology, a warranty, and a manageable monthly payment. So it's a no-brainer.
You know what grinds my gears about that? It's because the dealership is the one who's profiting off of that massive depreciation that you experience when you drive a BMW off the lot.
Yeah.
BMWs lose what, like 20% annual for the first 2 years you owe them?
The first owner gets cooked, and then they mark it up to certified pre-owned, and then they flip it to the young buyer.
But that money doesn't disappear into the atmosphere.
No, they
that
keep
money,
the spread. They
it's
keep the
going
spread.
into the dealership's pockets.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's what's driving this thing, man. Dealerships have figured out, hey, we can pump these cars out, and if they're just going to be sitting, we can lease them. And we know we're going to have to deal with that problem 2-3 years later because they're still on our balance sheet. But we're going to be able to literally certify them and flip them to the next generation and make a spread on both ends. And so that's what's happening. That's how it's trickled down to every kid that we know wants an M3 now. To reflect that in the culture, we talked about Transformers, we talked about JDM, we talked about Need for Speed. Gran Turismo 7, which is the new race game today, features 47 German performance cars, 19 American, and 12 JDM. Like, the culture has shifted, man. Like, this is a new era.
Yes, but I think we've seen the peak. There has always been a car that drove so much hype that you can highlight it as the peak of its era. If you look at like the Nissan Skyline or the Toyota Supra, like those things drew so much hype that they are literally shining stars amidst the entire mountain of awesome JDM cars. Today, what car do you think that is?
It's an M3.
I can tell you one German car that's driven 1 billion times more hype than an M3.
What?
A Porsche GT3 RS.
Oh, yeah. At the high end.
At the high end.
At the
bro.
high end,
But if you look at that and you look at the social and cultural phenomenon, people literally posting memes online that they are trying to sell their bodies to get a GT3 RS allocation. Not just to get a GT3 RS, just to get a dealership to bless them with a single allocation.
I mean, again, it's a reflection, right? Like, when our parents and our really older siblings were coming up, Ferrari was the standard. We're going to do another episode on that. Things are crazy at Ferrari right now. When we were in high school, it was a Lamborghini. Like, Lamborghini was the standard. And by the time the next generation, Gen Z, got there, it was a GT3, man. Like, they've taken over at both price points, at both levels. And another thing, we've got lease deals, we've got CPO, we've got culture shifting, Gran Turismo 7. We gotta talk about social media really quickly. 70% of enthusiasts said that they discover cars on Instagram Reels or TikTok, 68% on YouTube. Like, social media is driving a complete culture shift in cars. And like, we notice that because when you scroll, you see an M series car or an AMG burning rubber. Like on a TikTok, and you just don't see these DIY videos of a guy putting a turbo on his Supra anymore. It's different content.
It's true. The guys on YouTube talk about it all the time. Like if you look at like Mighty Car Mods or That Dude in Blue or any one of those like OG car channels where they used to like work on cars, look at the type of content they're putting out now. It's not that. That's not what people want because that's not what's accessible. It's not realistic to want to work on and tune your own car anymore. I mean, half the cars that you can buy are ECU locked from the factory. And even if you do break them, when you go to the dealership to get your oil changed, they're gonna be like, hey, your boost was 10 pounds higher than it was supposed to be. Voided. There goes 40 grand.
It's a different world, man. There goes the credit for your rest of your life.
Literally, yeah, no, gone, destroyed.
To wrap this story up, man, you had JDM, really a golden era, fueled by Fast and Furious, Need for Speed, cheap entry prices, easy mods, a strong culture, and minimal financial risk if you messed up. Then you've got muscle, exploded with subprime loans, Transformers hype, and retro designs that felt fresh. Owning a new Camaro or a Mustang was just more realistic than an imported Skyline or like a Mark IV Supra. And now, in the here and now, we've got a perfect storm of leasing, CPO warranties, advanced technology, influencers on both TikTok and Instagram, and a luxury vibe that the new generation is drawn to. BMW M cars in 2023 had record sales, AMGs have viral hashtags, and they've got broad exposure in the culture everywhere. And so the real question, and my final question for you, Mike, is this the chapter that we're ending on? Are German cars going to be the last for like naturally aspirated motors until we can't even drive anymore and now we're all in EVs that drive us? Or is this just another stop on the automotive roller coaster? Are we going to get Chinese entrances into the new markets? They've been absolutely killing it. Are we going to get a resurgence of old JDM cars? Or are we going to be living in an era of subscription-based horsepower? I don't know if you guys have heard about the new electric M3 coming out, but it's scary. What do you think?
When companies invest in things that are exciting to people, and you can make the criticism that it's a halo car, you can make the criticism that it's on paper performance, whatever it is, at the end of the day, they're putting effort and they're putting the attention of the public towards something that is exciting for enthusiasts. And look at the companies that are doing that. I think Toyota is making an effort towards doing that. Hyundai is making an effort towards doing that. And certainly Chinese EV companies like BYD are making efforts towards that. So watch them. Watch the people marketing and investing in the enthusiast. And I think that's where you can sort of predict that the fun cars and the culture will go next.
I hope you're right, and that's a great way to look at it. But what I do know is 10 years from now, we're gonna look back and say, remember that wave of M cars and AMGs that took over the world? History repeats itself, and the next generation is always waiting in the wings.
Sure is.
With that said, thanks for watching.